Hi everybody, welcome to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Mike.
So, Mike,
Yes.
when was the last time you gave a speech? Must have done one at some point.
Oh, I've done one at some point. I'm just trying to think of the last time. Probably it's been a while. I did some business presentations in my time in Taiwan, so that was probably the last time. Apart from this, but I don't really think of this as a speech. This is just talking to my friends on the other side of the camera. How about you? A proper speech, standing there, prepared, ready to go. When was the last time?
December was the last time I did one because I was a judge at a speaking contest.
Oh, okay.
So after that had done, I gave some speeching.
I would call those comments. But yeah, that's kind of a speech too.
I turned mine into more of a speech.
Oh, good. Okay.
I like doing that kind of thing. You know, give me a mic and give me an audience and you're going to struggle to get me off it, basically.
I see. So you enjoy giving a speech.
You know me. I love the attention. I love the crowd, that kind of thing. So, I've done lots of speeches either on stage as part of a play, in front of groups of people, sometimes for jobs, sometimes for fun here and there, birthday speeches, you know, people leaving work kind of speeches. I like that kind of talking stuff. I'm not bad at it, but I'm not as good as some of the people we're going to read about in this 2-day article. So let's check it out.
Reading.
Churchill, Roosevelt, Zelensky. Wartime's best speakers. On February 24th of this year, Russia shocked the world when it attacked Ukraine. Sadly, as happens in war, many people have had their lives torn up. During such a crisis, it takes great courage for a defending country to keep fighting. Since the war started, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has become a symbol of Ukrainian resistance. While he led his country through the conflict with Russia, he made news around the world for his leadership. In particular, he has motivated his people with his powerful speeches. On March 8th, Zelensky delivered a significant speech to the UK's Parliament, which included several emotional lines. At the summit, he said, "We will fight till the end. We will continue fighting for our land, in the forests, in the fields, on the shores, in the streets." He then quoted Shakespeare and said, "The question for us now is to be or not to be. It's definitely yes to be. We will not give up and we will not lose." Zelensky has received much praise for his speeches, which have even brought some politicians to tears.
So we're going to start the article by talking about pretty much the big news story of 2022.
Yes.
On February 24th of this year, Russia shocked the world when it attacked Ukraine. Of course, that's been in the news ever since. It was pretty unbelievable. It's like, wow, this is really happening. So it shocked me, it shocked Mike, it shocked you guys. It shocked the world. It was a huge surprise. That's what to shock means, to surprise someone in a really big way. And we often say with a shock, it's an unpleasant kind of way. Usually it's not a
great thing. I guess you could be shocked to learn you won the lottery, but usually it's kind of bad news that comes along all of a sudden.
Yeah, and of course it can be a noun. It was a big shock when this happened. So as a verb, here's an example sentence. Tim shocked his friends when he told them that he was joining the army. Like, what? We never thought you'd do that? I can't believe it.
Yeah, now that might be good news for Tim, but for his friends who didn't know about this, they might have been looking forward to going to university with him. Of course, they might be worried about his safety if he's in the army. He'll travel and they won't see him in the future. So that's why we might use that word shocked It's just news you really didn't expect. All right, so yes, the world did not expect Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine. We thought that there might be some tension and things going on, but not an actual war. Sadly, though, it happened, and as we read on, sadly, as happens in war, many people have had their lives torn up. Yeah, absolutely. We remember those pictures from especially February and March with millions of people running away from Ukraine, getting out of the country to keep their families safe. And yes, it tore up a lot of the country and tore up people's lives as well. Their normal lives of going to work, going to school, living at home, all of that was torn up. When we talk about tearing something up, it's kind of like a piece of paper. If you get some bad news or a bad test, you might be very angry and you'll tear it up. You'll break it down into little pieces, but we say tear because it's fabric or paper. You can tear up your clothes or something. Here, though, we're not actually talking about paper or clothing. We're talking about destroying things, ruining things. The typhoon could tear up the beachside community or something like that. It really does a lot of terrible damage to it.
And in that sentence, we used a particular kind of language, and our language in focus today is the causative verbs make and have, and then plus somebody, and then plus a verb. We use this pattern when someone is causing something else to do a particular thing or making this thing happen. With both make and have, we don't use to plus verb, we just use the verb. We have someone do something. We can make someone run, but not make someone to run, just the base verb. Now we use make when some kind of force or threat is being used. My mum made me clean my room. The big kid made me give him my money. We use have when the action is caused by something else. There's a little bit of the passive voice in it sometimes. We don't always know who's doing the action. I had someone clean my car just means I asked or paid them to do it. Now, if we use the PP form after the verb, like in our article, that's when it's the passive form. We don't know the agent that's doing it. We don't know, or the agent isn't important. For example, I had my hair washed. It doesn't matter who washed it. The important thing to learn from that sentence is I paid them or asked them to do it. The people of the Ukraine had their lives torn up. We don't mention that it was Russian soldiers, the invasion. That's kind of known. We don't know the individuals. It's not important for the meaning of this sentence. What the causative verb shows us, it's happening to them. They didn't ask for it. It's just happening.
Absolutely. And often if we're going to tell you who the agent is, we might follow that up by Russian soldiers. I had my hair washed by the barber or the hairdresser or something. But in that sentence, you're right. It's not important who did the tearing up. What's important is the people whose lives were torn up, destroyed, just totally thrown up in the air because of this awful war. So as we read on, it says, during such a crisis, it takes great courage for a defending country to keep fighting, right? As you know from watching the news, Ukraine is a much smaller country than Russia, doesn't have as big an army or anything like that. So it's taken a lot of great courage from everyone in Russia, from the soldiers to the families to the leaders, a lot of courage, a lot of bravery for them to keep fighting to defend their country against a much bigger invasion from Russia and the Russian army. Let's talk about this word crisis, which is an important word when we're considering what's going on in Ukraine. All right, crisis is a noun, and we use this to talk about a time with great change and probably kind of bad things going on because of a certain event or a certain set of events. We can talk about big crises, which would be the plural, C-R-I-S-E-S. The environmental crisis is something we've been hearing about, global warming and all the different bad things that are happening because of that. If we have a country that can't decide who their leader is, we could say, oh, they're having a political crisis, a great big problem in the country with a lot of unknown things going on, and no one really knows how it will all work out. And in your own personal life, you could have a crisis. You could have a relationship crisis if you're breaking up with your boyfriend or husband or wife or whatever. You can have a financial crisis if you lose your job and you don't have enough money to pay for the things you need. So these are kind of difficult events to live through. Hopefully you can work your way through the crisis and it can all end up better. But when you're in the crisis, you're in a situation where there are a lot of troubles and a lot of unknown things going on, but it's creating a bad situation. Because of Russia's actions in Ukraine, the whole world could soon be facing a food crisis. Yeah, absolutely. People are worried about all the food that isn't coming out of Ukraine and Russia because of the war. If people don't have enough food, that could be another big crisis.
Now, in that sentence in the article, we also describe Ukraine as a defending country.
Right.
If you are defending, you're trying to protect yourself or your things. You're being attacked. Now, this could be in war, like you're the defending country, you're the defending army in a city. It could also be in sports. If another side has the ball and they're trying to score in your goal, you're the defending side for that period of play until you get the ball back.
All right, back to the article. Since the war started, since this whole crisis began, or since the war started, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has become a symbol of Ukrainian resistance. Absolutely. There's been a lot of strong resistance from Ukraine as the defending country. They've been fighting hard to keep the Russians out or to stop them from invading too far. And when you fight back against someone who is attacking you in some kind of way, you are showing some resistance. You are resisting. That would be the verb form, resist, resist. And resistance is basically what you are doing to fight back against, probably in this case, an invading army. Some army or country attacks your country, and the people in that country that was attacked now fight back. That action of fighting is their resistance. Back to the article.
Yeah, it says, while he led his country through the conflict with Russia, he, so this is still Zelensky, made news around the world for his leadership. Now, this is pretty cool, considering this guy is like a former comedian, isn't he?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so he's not had a whole life in politics.
But he was a lawyer too.
Okay, so he's got a lot of background there that may actually help him out, because being a sort of comedian actor does help you make speeches and maybe help you lead. But this is happening during a conflict. A conflict is some kind of argument. It could be a small one, like two friends kind of disagreeing about whether a movie is good or not. That's a conflict. It could be a great big fight, a battle, a war where whole armies are clashing. That is also a conflict. Whenever two people or two sides have opposing views or goals and they're each trying to win, that is a conflict. For example, people are still worried about a conflict between North and South Korea. That war hasn't technically ended.
True. Yeah, they're afraid the conflict will come back again and become violent again. And of course, we don't like violent conflict. Having a conflict with your friend about whether to eat pizza or hamburgers, that's all fine. But when wars and shooting and fighting starts, this is not good. But it does make news. When things make news, it's something that appears in the news. It's a big event. It's an important event. Some important people did it. Whatever the case is, when you open your newspaper or look at your favorite news website the next day, you will see it there. So you know when big sports games happen or big stars do things or politicians do something important, it will make news. And yes, Volodymyr Zelensky has been making a lot of news. He doesn't want to. I think he would be quite happy to go back to just being the president of his little country there, but he's really been making news. And I think getting a lot of admirers.
Yeah.
A lot of people are really, showing a lot of respect and admiration to this guy.
And certainly his own people.
Yes.
We see in particular, he has motivated his people with his powerful speeches. That kind of brings us back to what we were talking about in our introduction. We'll talk about that more, but first let's look at the phrase in particular. So we see in the article, in particular, he has motivated his people with his powerful speeches. So we'll look at some of the words in that sentence, but first the phrase in particular. In particular means this thing more than other things. Zelensky is not only giving speeches, he's also appearing in places, he's asking countries for help, he's doing lots of things to keep the Ukraine resistance going, to help his people. But most of all, in particular, this thing in particular more than other things, it's his speeches that are helping a lot. And it's these speeches that help to motivate his people.
That's right. Giving a good speech is a great way, if you're a good speaker, to motivate people. Because when you motivate people, you encourage them, you give them energy. Not by maybe giving them a cup of coffee or something, but by saying words that inspire them, that make them believe in themselves and believe in what they're doing and feel like they can make it, they can reach success, they can achieve their goals. So a good coach will motivate the team. Your parents might motivate you when you're feeling down, your friends too. And of course, politicians with their speeches. They like to motivate people to believe in them, to vote for them, to think that this politician is really going to be a great leader for our country. And you know, being good with words and being good at speeches is a great way to motivate people, or to use the noun, to give those people motivation, the feeling that they can do it.
Yeah, Zelensky has given lots of different speeches and he changes the way he talks depending on who the speech is aimed at, which is a pretty clever way to do it. So here's an example of one particular speech that he gave. The article says, on March 8th, Zelensky delivered a significant speech to the UK's Parliament, which included several emotional lines. Few things to look at here, starting with the word significant. Significant means it's very important. It's maybe more important than other things of his kind. Maybe the effects of what he did continue to last. Of course, some politicians will come, they'll give a speech, and a few days later everyone's forgotten it.
Sure, they won't make news.
But if it's a significant speech, it will have long-lasting effects. Changes will happen. It was very important. For example, the tests next week are very significant, so you should study hard to prepare for them. These tests could have a big say in your future. The grades matter, so study hard, they're significant.
Absolutely. That little quiz you might do on Monday morning, that might not be so significant, but your final exams before your summer holiday, those probably are. Next, we had this word emotional, all right? When you're giving a speech to people, you might try to get a little bit emotional, because when we talk about emotional, we're using the adjective form of the noun emotion. What are emotions? Emotions are feelings, right? So you have emotions through the day. You're happy, you're sad, you're worried, things like that. And when we use emotional, we're just talking about things relating to emotions. My friend is very emotional. They always cry in a movie or something. I got really emotional when my old college friend came back. I hadn't seen them in 10 years. It was a very emotional reunion or something like that. There were a lot of feelings going on. Good, bad feelings, just feelings. For example, saying goodbye to her high school friends was really emotional for Jessica. She's sad to leave them. She's excited about what she's doing next year. She's also laughing at all the good times they had. All of those emotions are going on.
So Zelensky put some pretty emotional lines in his speech, and we've got them here, or one of them. At the summit, which is this big meeting between leaders, that's what a summit is, he said, "We will fight till the end. We will continue fighting for our land, in the forests, in the fields, on the shores, in the streets."
Very interesting. Kind of reminds you of another famous speech.
It does.
From a British leader, and I'm sure Zelensky was thinking, I'll use some of that same language, the same style. That will get an emotional reaction.
It was not an accident.
He then quoted Shakespeare, another great British English writer. He's speaking to the British Parliament, so he picks a writer from their history and said, "The question for us now is to be or not to be. It's definitely yes, to be. We will not give up and we will not lose." And of course, a lot of you would know to be or not to be is a quote from Shakespeare's Hamlet. Let's talk about that word quote. All right, to quote someone is basically to take words that that person said or wrote and then to use those words in your own speech or in your own writing. It's not stealing as long as you give credit to the person who said it or who wrote it in the first place. And of course, yeah, if you're giving a speech, often people before you gave the same kind of speech or talked about the same kind of thing, but in a slightly better way than maybe you can. So it's okay to quote them as long as you tell people where you got those words from and don't say, yeah, to be or not to be. I was the first person to say that. No, of course, you're quoting Shakespeare. And those little bits of a person's speech or a person's writing, those things we quote, we also use the noun to talk about those little bits of writing. A quote from Shakespeare, to be or not to be, is a very famous Shakespeare quote. For example, here's another one. Our coach quoted the famous New York Yankee catcher Yogi Berra when he said, "It ain't over till it's over." Yeah, that's of course true. So Zelensky quoted Shakespeare and changed him a little bit. To be or not to be, it definitely is yes, to be.
If you say definitely, you mean for sure, certainly, 100%. He's saying there's no doubt that Ukraine will not continue to fight. They will keep going.
That's right. Now, Zelensky has received much praise for his speeches, which have even brought some politicians to tears. Oh. That's true. He's been invited to speak to many governments around the world, and his speeches have been known to bring people to tears. To bring someone to tears is basically to make someone cry. All right, it could be because you're telling a sad story, because you've made a great movie and they're feeling very emotional and they start crying. It could be because you're being mean and horrible to that person, which is not a nice thing to do, but to bring someone to tears is basically to make someone cry because of some action that happened before. And politicians, the good politicians, their speeches have been known to bring people to tears.
That's right. And of course, a politician is someone involved in politics, someone who is part of the government. They run the country, they make laws, they try to get elected, that kind of thing. A person involved in that is a politician. So we're going to look at some more speeches tomorrow, some of the famous ones that Zelensky kind of quoted and used lines from, as well as others who gave wartime speeches. But right now we're going to today's For You Chat question.
All right, so our For You Chat question is all about giving speeches. Do you think you're good at delivering speeches? Maybe not Volodymyr Zelensky good, but certainly better than Donald Trump good. Are you good at delivering speeches? Why or why not?
I would say yes, I am pretty good at delivering speeches. I'm not the best person in the world or even the best person I know, but I've done acting for 20 plus years. I've had some training on how to give business presentations. You may remember we did lessons on how to give talks about body language, about vocal stuff. I know all of that stuff. I've been doing it for years and years, and I think that helps make me a good speaker. Of course, you need the right words, you need the right lines to say, but if I've got good words, I can deliver them well. How about you?
I think I'm not too bad at it. It's something I do a whole lot, but if I had to do it, it wouldn't make me too worried. So what about you guys? Do you think you're good at delivering speeches? It's one of those things you get better at the more you do, but it still can make people nervous. But if you can fight through that, I'm sure you can find your inner Volodymyr Zelensky and make great speeches. We're going to have more on this topic tomorrow, I believe. So come back and join us for that. And until then, thanks for joining us, spending your time with us, and take care. We'll see you soon.
Tomorrow. Bye.
Bye. Vocabulary Review.
Shock. The expensive bill at a doctor's office in the U.S. really shocked George. He didn't expect to spend that much money. Crisis. The country faced a crisis when it had a typhoon and an earthquake in the same week. Conflict. We asked Elizabeth not to come to the book club again. because she always has conflicts with others. Significant. The company's owner has to make some significant decisions that could change the company's future. Emotional. The emotional movie caused many of the people in the audience to start crying. Quote. Our teacher quoted French author Jean-Paul Sartre when she said, "Hell is other people."
智慧小补帖
Defending. Resistance. Motivate. Definitely.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net